Hi Year 6, we are moving on this week to a new topic of decimals. Now it's not completely new because you have done it a couple of times before, but we'll be going back and exploring and hopefully learning some new things. First of all, let's start off with some Among Us maths. So as before, you can pause the video and do it in your own time and try and find the two imposters or the two wrong answers, or you can do it and it'll be timed and the answers will come up in about 30 seconds. So the two imposters there were the green one, which should have been 9.92, and the red one, which should have been 8,883. If you're struggling with the decimals, don't panic because we're still going to be practicing that as I mentioned earlier. First off, let's think about what a decimal actually is. Now, a decimal is a part of a whole. Hopefully you're thinking that you've heard that recently. We called a fraction a part of a whole as well, and we can turn decimals and fractions into equivalents. First of all, I want us to think about money. So here I have a 10 pence. Think about how many 10p's make up £1. Can you pause the video and write this as a fraction and as a decimal? So how many 10 pences go into a pound? What fraction do I have here? Then can you also think about a penny, and can you write that as a fraction and as a decimal? Let's start with a 10 pence. Hopefully we know that 10 pences make up £1. So if I have one of them, I have 1/10 of a pound. So 10 pence equals 1/10 of a pound. Now let's think about how we write 10 pence. So if we see it in the shops, we see 0.10. Then if we turn our attention to my place value grid here, so we've got units here, well I've got no whole numbers, decimal point, and then a 1 goes in my tenths column. I can put as many zeros at the end of this as I want to, they don't hold any value, okay, so I could put 1 0 or 2, it makes absolutely no difference. I could keep going if I wanted to, but that is 1/10. 1/10 is the same as, it's in my tenths column, 0.1. Okay, and that, think about our 10 pence. I wonder if you did the same for pennies. So there are 100 pennies in £1. So we can think of that as, so 1 pence equals 1/100th of a pound. There's 100 of them. So again, if we turn to our place value grid, 1 penny would be 0. No 10 pences, no tenths, 0.0, and in my hundredths column, I would have 1. That's how we see 1 penny, isn't it? That's our pennies column. Hopefully you got that. Now there is actually something smaller than hundredths. Hopefully you realise that we have then got thousandths. Now really be careful between thousandths and thousands. There is a massive difference between the value of those columns. We think about this one as our tens, so T-E-N-S, then the units, then tenths. So tenths is 10 times smaller than my ones column. So my 10p is 10 times smaller than my pound. And the tenths has that THS on the end. So we have tenths, think about our 10p, then hundredths, think about our 1 pence. Now in money, in English money, we don't have anything that's smaller than pennies. Okay, that's our smallest denomination. However, in our place value, we can get 10 times smaller again, and we can go into thousandths. So thousandths have got a much less value than our tenths, 100 times smaller. I'd now like you to pause the video and have a go at writing these fractions as decimals. So you have 2 tenths, 4 hundredths, and 10 hundredths. Use the place value grid to help you. Let's start off with our 2 tenths. So 2 tenths, 2 out of 10, it's part of a whole, so it's going to go in my tenths column. So I would have 0, let's rub this out, come back to that one. So 0 in my units column, decimal point, and then in my tenths, I've got 2 tenths. So 2 tenths is the same as 0.2. Now let's have a look at my second one, 4 hundredths. So again, it's part of a whole. I haven't got a whole, so I've got no units. 0. Point. I've got no tenths here, okay, so I'm going to put a 0 in my tenths column. But what I have got is 4 hundredths. So let's move to our hundredths column. I've got 4 in my hundredths column. So 4 hundredths is the same as 0.04. Now my last one was a little bit of a trick. I said 10 hundredths. Now we can cancel these hundredths down. 10, we can't fit 10 in my hundredths column here. We know that the maximum we can have is 9. So what do you think is going to happen when I get, if I've got 9 hundredths and I add one more hundredth, 10 hundredths, I'm going to exchange those and cancel this down to 1 tenth. 10 hundredths is the same as 1 tenth, so I can write this as a decimal as 0.1. Okay, well done if you got that. This time I've done it the opposite way around, so I have given you a decimal, 0.654. Can you partition that decimal and write each number as a fraction? Okay, so have a go, and then our number was 0.654. Let's start off here. So there's nothing in my ones column. Let's go to our tenths column. I have got 6 in my tenths column, so that's the same as 6 tenths. The next one I've got, my next column along, is the hundredths column. There's 5 in my hundredths column, so that's the same as 5 hundredths. And then my last number, I have a digit 4 in the thousandths column. So 4 thousandths is how we write our fraction. The next activity is I've written out some decimals on the board. I want you to pause the video and write out some sentences to tell me the value of the number 5, the digit 5 in each of these numbers. What is its value? So for example, 650.2, we could say the 5 in my digit is in the tens column, and therefore the 5 has the value of 50. Okay, so I'm looking for two things. What column is it in and what value does it have? So the 5 is in the tens column, and so it has a value of 50. See if you can do that for each of these decimals. Let's go through these together. Our first number was 43.05. 4's in my tens column, 43, decimal point 05. So the digit 5 is in the hundredths column, and its value is 5 hundredths or 0.05. Either is okay. The next number was 562. 562.91. Here the digit 5 is in my hundreds column, and so the value of the 5 is 500. The next number was 210.560. Remember that 0 has absolutely no value, it's just holding a place there. So the 5 in this instant was in my tenths column, so the value of that 5 is 5 tenths or 0.5. And then there was one more, 321, squeeze it on, 321.145. Now this time, this 5 is important, okay, so I could add zeros on all of these numbers, it wouldn't matter, okay. This time my 5 is in the thousandths column, and so the value of my 5 is 5 thousandths or 0.005. Well done if you got those. That's all for today. Your task is over on Purple Mash. It might be easier for the first question for you to use the pen tool that's on there. So remember, just click on the worksheet, the pens will appear, and then there's the thickness bar at the bottom. So if you take it to the thinnest, it should be easier to write in. For the second question, there's text box, just as we have been practicing, to add in the answers. I would recommend perhaps drawing yourself a place value grid to help you, and if there's any struggles, as ever, we will be on the Google Classroom at 10 o'clock in the morning if you want to ask any questions, or we're always available on the blog or on the email address. Good luck, see you tomorrow.